The syllabus is artifact promoting student success through a key pedagogical tool. So what I'd like to do is just share briefly how I came into this work. And so this all started with a project that I got involved in as part of my dissertation over at USC. Some of you have met with Estela Ben-Simon out of the Center for Urban Education at USC. And so I worked very carefully with her over about a year on a project at a surrounding community college. That work was a year-long inquiry project where we brought together faculty and staff from all disciplines, counselors, anybody involved in working with students. And we were just kind of problem posing what's going on here. Specifically, we were looking at equity gaps and attainment for underserved students. And so that's where this work comes from. Then after that, we're going to look to some practical applications looking at specific course syllabi. I see someone peeking in there. So let me just talk a little bit about this project. The purpose of the project was to increase transfer rates, develop an evidence-based model of assessment to improve college effectiveness, and utilize practitioner expertise to produce equitable transfer outcomes. And I think that piece is very important, looking at practitioner expertise. We were trying to get the faculty who work with students to come up with these ideas, because ultimately that is the greatest resource that we have. And so Estela and her team at CUE developed this equity-minded syllabus protocol, and that's the handout that I gave you all at the very beginning. And so this protocol was given to faculty, and they looked at their own syllabi based on these indicators. And so this was a self-assessment instrument by faculty to consider whether it's instantiating equity-minded and culturally inclusive practices. And I'm going to define these terms. So when we're talking about equity-mindedness, we're talking about conscious of race in an affirmative sense, aware that one's own knowledge, beliefs, and practices, even if they are intended to be race neutral, can disadvantage students of color. Responsible for eliminating inequities by changing practices, and this is one key practice that we're going to be looking at today, and aware that certain racialized patterns may be embedded in our practice, and that may unfortunately perpetuate inequitable educational outcomes. And so we're going to be looking at this frame as well, this idea of cultural inclusivity and what that means. So let's just define it here. So it adds to the idea of equity-mindedness in that all students, regardless of their backgrounds, are absolutely capable of excelling academically. And it is our job as educators and as instructors to be responsible for their learning. The knowledge and experience that students bring into the classroom should be heard, valued, and engaged in meaningful ways. And so what I'd like for us to do today, and I brought several syllabi, and I have to say these are syllabi that are not from PCC. My purpose was not to shame or condemn or to highlight anything that anybody is doing here on campus. And so I collected some of these from different community college educators. I have 3 that we're going to be looking at today. I want you to know that 2 of them are templates. And so we know as templates, these are templates that are given to our adjunct faculty or anybody who has to basically on a whim teach a class, right? Here's the syllabus, go teach. So I have 3. I'm not a math person, so I'm going to ask you to get into groups of about 3 or 4. And I'd like for you to specifically look at these elements. So does the document communicate? And I picked some of these from the handout. There's no way we could look at all of these indicators of an equity-mindedness and culturally inclusive syllabi. So I picked some of these that I think are key. So does the document communicate a respect for students? Does it show that diversity is valued? Does it show the confidence in the capacity of students to be successful learners and achieve their goals? Does it show any institutional responsibility to provide students with the information and resources needed to meet these expectations? Does it show any, in any way, an engagement of the students' prior experience, prior educational and also life experience? And ultimately, is there any recognition that knowledge is co-constructed between faculty, educator, and student? So let me pass these out. I have 3 examples here. One is from an intermediate algebra class. So if this interests you, please get into this group. I have another set from English. And so if this interests you, get into this group. There are 5 here. And then I have another one from chemistry. Oops, there go my things. This is a fat one, chemistry. Anybody? Awesome.
Are you sure? Chemistry.
This is chemistry. You guys can grab these.
Okay.
Were there 2 more or no?
There are 3 more.
Okay.
Yeah?
There.
Was that you? Yeah.
Oh no, not
Not chemistry.
All right, everybody, I hate to cut you short, but I do want to get started discussing these. I know a lot of us have class at 1, and so I'm just watching our clock. So if you want to continue writing, that's okay, but we do want to start discussing all of these syllabi. So would anybody like to get us started in talking about your small group discussion? What did you discuss?
We'll do first.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the English syllabi, and
They do.
we'll talk about 2 points, and then we'll let everyone else
Awesome.
come in. So on respect, we said no. All right, it wasn't being fair with attendance.
Okay.
Number 1, you know, it's.
Can you just share what the instructor says about attendance?
If you have 2 attendance, that's enough for you. 2 absences. 2 absences. Sorry, 2 absences. That's enough for you to get dropped from the class, or you're not gonna receive a passing grade. So it's just,
and the big thing there is that the syllabus states that there's no such thing as an excusable absence, which is kind of ridiculous in the real world, because we all know that emergencies happen that we totally have no control over.
Mm-hmm.
How can that person, or that student in this case, be held accountable for that situation that happened, that they had no control over?
Right.
And you're gonna penalize them anyway, so.
There was a half a page dedicated to explaining all the absence rules, and they were kind of confusing, and it just it seemed way too excessive. And
Okay.
to start off on a negative tone.
yeah, so they do break it up where now the professor or instructor for this class broke it up in the first half of your semester. If you have 2 absences, and then they went back to second part of your semester, if you have 1 absence there, that's 3, and that. And it was just very confusing for us. Like,
Okay.
what are you trying to do here? So it's throwing us off as well. It's like, okay, this is confusing. Number 2, we talked about diversity, and we went 50-50 on this. We couldn't say really no, we couldn't say really yes. But on the yes part, it was amongst the students. Because they do say respect, you know, your fellow students when they come to talk about on religion. On the topics you're going to talk about, it's religion, technology, what was the other? Immigration and politics.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and you know, when we talk about religion and politics within family, it gets heated. I mean, let alone with strangers. So
Right.
it did say, you know, respect everyone else's opinion, but it's never clarified from the professor, his opinion.
Okay.
So there was no clear.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the group that also had the English syllabus if you can say a few words about that.
Yeah, we have it. For respect, we said it's partial.
Okay.
Because in terms of the office hours section, she mentions how she encourages the student, she or he, to visit her during her office hours. She would like to get to know them. So that was the warm, the sweet spot. But everything else was really, really harsh. In terms of diversity, except for one sentence where in the syllabus she mentions that students have to be sensitive to the cultural diversity, there is nothing else, even from her point of view in policies, to demonstrate that. In terms of confidence and the capacity of the students, we said it's not there. There was nothing about that.
We agree with that.
Okay.
They're setting up the students for failure,
Okay.
basically, on that syllabus.
It's a very important point. I'd like to share with you. Sure.
Things, sorry,
Yeah.
just real quick, that
I think we need to mention is when we talk about diversity, diversity is also how do these students now think? And there's no understanding of the fact that we're talking about millennials who are surgically attached to their technology. They can't function without it. That's how they take notes, that's how they participate in life. And this syllabus requires them not to participate in life as they know it.
Interesting point. I happen to give these syllabi to students, and I'd like to share with you some of their perspectives on these syllabi, and we'll do this for each of these that we looked at. They did not get the list of indicators, but I did give them kind of some open-ended responses to complete. Some of them were, the professor respects me because, the professor does not, the professor values my culture, does not, the professor wants me to be successful because, or does not, and then my opinion will matter in this class because. And so if we look to the one on English, this is interesting. So it says that this professor wants me to be successful because he or she is clear with the assignments and policies. So the students really like the very specific schedule attached with the individual assignments. But look to this one here. This was funny. This professor does not respect me because he doesn't accept any excused absences, which is something that came up. This professor is mean and too strict. And these students wrote a very intricate, angry face associated with that comment. So I oftentimes think it is important for us to bring in the student voice because we're making a lot of assumptions here on what we think a syllabus should look like. But ultimately, they're the ones on the receiving end. Thank you. Yes?
But one thing with the attendance is that this class meets once a week. And so for a student to miss twice, I mean, if you're looking at it as a class that meets 3 times a week, you'd say 2, and you say, oh my goodness, that's pretty strict. That's pretty mean, but it is, you know, meets only one.
Right, and of course you would have to stick to the policy that we have on campus for the number of hours missed in class, right?
But to piggyback on that, actually to disagree with that in some sense, it will be okay because I mean I've had this situation where I taught a class once a week and you know, hey, you can only miss so many. However, I did put in there that if the student feels that an absence should be excused, the professor can excuse that absence, and it will not count against the 2. I would always give them 3, but it won't count against, in my case, the 3 absences. Okay. The issue here is that there are no excused absences. Right. That's where
that's the difficult language.
Yeah, I think that's what
okay, good. And I believe, was it that one that had the all caps? No, there was another one. Okay, good. So let's go to the next one then. Who had the chemistry?
So it was a big, very detailed syllabus. Yeah, which I guess is a positive thing. Some of the things, we've unfortunately kind of focused on the negative stuff. There were positive things in there, but some of the negative things included that the once again, with the flexibility of missing labs or even scheduling office hours, there was no flexibility involved. It was, this is the way it is, and this is, you know, no makeups for labs and that sort of thing. And we thought perhaps they could have had alternative assignments or something that might have helped with that to make it more flexible, or that could have been co-constructed with the students in a discussion like, how would you like this to happen? Here's what we have to do, and that sort of thing.
Right.
Also, a more explicit statement of inclusivity, or the statements about making it a safe place, or respecting your opinion. None of that was actually explicitly mentioned in this syllabus at all. So there was no statement of valuing any individual students' opinions or diversity or anything. Yeah. And sort of along with that, number 4 down here, there's no indication of ADA compliance or that anything will be accommodated or what are the resources on campus for that ADA sort of thing. Once again, the co-construction, there was no indication that there'd be a dialogue with the students about anything. It was all sort of uniformly delivered one way and indicated so in the syllabus. Like, you can always come see me about anything, but never like, we'll talk about this and how do you want this to work. The list of materials, pretty expensive. Seemed like there were no alternatives and no resources given for a student who didn't quite have the $10,000 to participate in this class. Positive note though, there was a big section on how to succeed, very detailed explanation of how a student might succeed in the class and the expectations, what you should do each week and stuff, we thought that was positive. Or did you guys have other things?
Yeah, you covered it. It's good.
Okay.
Did another group have the chemistry syllabus? No? Let me share with you. I incorrectly put biology, but it is chemistry. And so we'll take a look. It says, the professor wants me to be successful because he lists all the information, like contact and where to buy school supplies. He provides tips on how to survive in chemistry, which is something that you mentioned, that very long list of how to be successful in this class. This professor does not respect me because he or she regards coming late to class and leaving early as irresponsible, impolite, and disruptive to the classmates. So here we have another element of attendance going on in this syllabus. Okay, interesting. The last one was the math syllabus. Which groups had the math?
I'm just finishing.
No, very detailed. I love it.
Gee, I can tell you I can't stop writing once I start. Right. We felt that the syllabus overall was very sort of thrown together and disorganized. It didn't have any flow.
Okay.
So I think that is, to me as a teacher, a lack of respect for the students that are going to be in my class. And we felt that the syllabus lacked any kind of opening words of invitation, about what to expect from the class, and the teacher having a positive, I don't know, I always open with a statement of, I don't teach algebra, and I don't know what's inviting about algebra, but I would say something about, the positive thing about, studying math and how it opens up a whole world to whatever, I don't know. And as far as diversity, we also saw no evidence of it in the syllabus. And I put, there was no mention of the resources available to them. There was nothing about what the student brings to the class from their own background as far as even prerequisites. They all come from different schools. There was also no survey maybe. If I was the math teacher, I'd want a little survey at the end that they could fill out and bring to the first day of class when they join the class. So I would know something, we might say, what was the last math class you took, or if they're new here, where did you go to high school, what was, just general information so you get some background, or their fear of math, anything like that. Confidence in the capacity of the student. I didn't see anything, we didn't see anything about that in the syllabus either. It's so kind of like somebody just cut and pasted different things together, and no words of benefit or encouragement. I think algebra is a challenging course, and there was just nothing about it. There's a course outline, but it doesn't even have the title of the chapters to show a flow of the course, so they see progression. And the institutional, the responsibility to provide students with the information and resources needed to meet high expectations. Again, there's confusion about the textbook, how to get the textbook. There's hardly anything, but there's a whole page about how to get the textbook. And if you're English as a second language, I speak English and it's even a little confusing. So that's not there. I feel like that's showing a lack of respect to the students and not seeing that maybe some of them might have lower ability. And then I put no titles. So I think I said that no titles of the subjects weekly that they can expect. And it would be nice with each chapter to just have a statement what it's addressing, because the student, if they keep the syllabus, if they're in the middle of the semester and they forget something, want to go back to what chapter, they can see the subject matter. It just seemed like they try to write as little as possible.
Right.
And then for differences in their prior educational, again, I think you get that from a little survey or that they bring to the class. As far as co-construct, there's none of that. There's no statement of what students can expect from the teacher. The teacher doesn't say what they can expect of them, and there's no statement of what to expect from the student. There's nothing about absences, grades, anything.
Good point.
So the student goes in blind, sort of going to be at the whim of the teacher each class. they have no idea what's expected of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the SLOs were not really very encouraging.
Okay, again, this is not from our campus, so we
Well,
can point the
I'm
finger
glad.
at another campus.
Yeah.
So, interested in what the students had to say.
There's a scoring grade, but I mean, it doesn't say how it's attached to the quizzes or the chapters, you know, how many points they gain for finishing each chapter
Right.
or anything like that.
So let's take a look to these. Here it says, my opinion will not matter in this class because there isn't any participation and or interaction in class. This professor doesn't respect the student because he or she doesn't explain clearly what his students can learn during this class. When students looked at the syllabus, the most common word from them was dead. Dead, it's just dead. And so, again, that kind of gives you the idea there of what this is not bringing to that class. All right, thank you very much. I have here a couple of considerations that you may think about as you approach your own syllabus work, possibly for summer, maybe fall, whenever it is you're coming back to teach. And so one thing, and that's actually something that I think this group brought up, is expressing care through a welcome message in the class. So welcoming the students to the class and again, kind of just informing them about the course and your excitement for them being there and your expectations for their success. So let's take a look. This is an example. This is an ESL instructor, not mine, but recognize that because of the ESL population, the vocabulary is kind of suited for non-native speakers. So welcome to our class. I am excited to have you in this class. All students have an opportunity to succeed in this class and at the college. We appreciate the richness of your ideas, your cultural background, and your life experiences. Education is a gift to yourself. Take advantage of the opportunity to improve your English language skills and your life in our community. So it's a welcome, it's instilling, again, hope and success, not only for this course, but for outside of the college as well, and improving the community, kind of looking at that human capital perspective. Another element that we may consider is consider in revision in tone. And so in looking at a lot of these syllabi, it's really common to see a lot of this very punitive language or directives, do this, don't do this, if you do this, then this will happen, right? And so this is an example from several course syllabi surveyed. Don't be late, triple exclamation marks, right? Sometimes this is even in all caps. And so of course the message you're sending is that you are essentially screaming at your students, and we don't want that. And so reframing that or changing that to, I expect myself to be present and on time as well as prepared for all lecture and laboratory sessions, and I also expect the same of you. Again, just an example. Okay, and something that I oftentimes think about is consider putting an explanation first. So an explanation of the successful college practice, whatever that is, followed by what you might consider the rule or the expectation. And so it's essentially putting the why before the what when you're writing your syllabus. And I'd like for us to take a look to an example, and I think we have enough time to do a little reframing activity. So you can work again in your small groups, or you can choose to work alone, that's fine too. I'd like for you to look to this example, and this is taken from another syllabus we didn't look at. This is a biology syllabus. And so I took just a part of it from attendance and participation. I notice in this section you see the most punitive language out of all sections of course syllabi. So this is the one that had all caps: missing any class of the first week of lecture without a reasonable excuse and without notifying the instructor by email will result in immediate exclusion from the class. Consistent attendance to each lecture is required for successful completion of this course. Attendance will be taken at the beginning of each class. If the student misses 4 classes or more, he or she may be dropped from the course. All right, so I'd like for you to consider, or actually to revise this section using this strategy of providing an explanation first, followed by the expectation. Does that make sense? Okay, so take a few minutes and then we'll listen to some of those. I know some of you are kind of looking at the clock because you have class. If you need to leave, that's totally fine. All right, I'm going to stop you all just because we're running out of time here. Would anybody like to share a possible revision of this? And I know this is kind of, again, off the cuff, but any thoughts on how to reframe this? Yeah.
Where it says the last sentence, if the student misses 4 classes or more, he or she may be dropped from the class. We could say, you will drop a letter grade.
Okay.
Instead of being dropped from the class.
Okay.
Drops you a letter grade.
And the way that I phrase it is 4 absences or more could affect your grade. You know, another one is consistent attendance in each lecture is required for successful completion of this course. I don't like the word required because it suggests that if you're not here practically every day, you're not going to be successful. Whereas I would use the word important.
Okay.
Okay, consistent attendance in each lecture, to each lecture is important for successful completion. So it's important to be here.
I see.
But if you say it's required, it's almost like, you know, you miss 1 or 2 times, you miss 1 or 2 lectures, you're not going to pass.
You're gone.
Which
Right.
is not necessarily the case.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. Any other thoughts?
We were trying to put the why first. And
Yeah,
saying
good.
Something like, each lecture is specially designed to enhance your reading, or, I spent a lot of time getting prepared for a lecture. I hope something along like the why.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we write down?
I put, I wasn't finished, but I put, the quality of your experience and success in the class depends on your regular attendance and participation in class discussions and assignments. You will enjoy learning in an active environment that is supported by your own individual efforts.
Awesome.
Nice, right?
Really nice.
I put quotes on my syllabus. I was trying to find it this whole time, just found it.
Yeah.
Through campus from PCC students or teachers that are
Okay.
like now famous. So under attendance, I put the day someone quits school, he's condemning himself to a future of poverty. Agnes Galante. Just hit you over the head with that. So I put that on attendance as inspiration.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts? It's a work in progress, right? The last consideration I want to talk about is consider embracing this perspective of institutional agency. And what we're talking about when we're discussing institutional agency is something that you may not necessarily think about, or maybe you do, but this is recognizing that your role as an educator is much bigger than your specific discipline. So you are introducing students to the language, culture, and expectations of college and what it means to be a college student. Oftentimes, many of our students do not have models of college success. You, as the educator, may be the first and only one. So take that responsibility because it is indeed important. And remember to offer assistance, encouragement, and support as opposed to expecting students to ask questions first. Right? Providing them with the resources, providing them with the opportunities for them to succeed and move on. So I have here just a little bit of an action plan, some thoughts for either summer or maybe for fall. And I'd like for you to consider one of my considerations. So possibly consider adding a welcome message, something that implies, again, hope and success in your perspective and your enthusiasm for having them in your class. Consider revising where appropriate. Again, a change in tone, a shifting in language, that why before the what perspective, or the explanation before the expectation. And then lastly, consider embracing this very, very powerful perspective of institutional agency because ultimately, again, we have a very precious role in our classroom, and I just want educators to be very mindful of that role. All right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.